Here's why Spider-Man 3 is way better than Across the Spider-Verse. The first reason Spider-Man 3 is better than Across the Spider-Verse is because of how rich the story and the characters and the themes are in this movie. There's an underlying theme of forgiveness and choice in this film, and we see that with Peter as he has to overcome his darker half in order to become the best version of himself by the end of this movie. And we see Harry also become the better version of himself by overcoming his darker half, that villainous side, and becoming a selfless, loving hero and friend by the end of this film. Peter's arc in this movie wraps up Spider-Man 1 and 2 while also giving him his own specific and special journey for this movie, and it really shows us how they both fell to their lowest point, Peter and Harry, but ultimately made the choice to forgive themselves and forgive others and become the best versions of themselves. Meanwhile, in Across the Spider-Verse with Miles and Gwen, there's no real deeper layers or deeper themes going on with these arcs in these movies. Gwen undergoes very minimal development, and Miles doesn't really have any arc in this film, and if he does, it's not really that great or overtly special in comparison to Harry and Peter's in Spider-Man 3. And with the villain situation, this is pretty simple. Sandman is an empathetic villain with based motives and based morals, and you can basically feel the emotion when he's talking to Peter at the end of the movie. There's no emotion with Spot, and his motives are weak. He wants to get back at Miles for inadvertently ruining his life when Miles was 13. Really? One of the weakest villains I've ever seen. And the pacing in Spider-Man 3 is much better. I've seen multiple people agree with me in the fact that the pacing in the first half of Across the Spider-Verse is awful. You're bored out of your mind. And as far as the action goes, Spider-Man 3's action is way more nuanced and it's more entertaining to watch, in my opinion, than the action scenes in Across the Spider-Verse. And I don't want to hear, oh, Across the Spider-Verse is a setup movie, when Infinity War literally set up Endgame perfectly while still focusing on making a great movie in and of itself that didn't feel like a mess and that was perfectly setting up Endgame. And so overall, from the characters to the storytelling to the deeper themes, etc., Spider-Man 3 is way better than Across the Spider-Verse. And even though both of these movies are juggling a lot of different things, when Across the Spider-Verse does it, it feels like a mess of a movie and a very bloated plot. But when Spider-Man 3 is doing it, it feels like more of a cohesive movie that wraps up every aspect of the film beautifully while also giving you an emotional conclusion to one of the greatest superhero movies ever and one of the greatest trilogies ever. Spider-Man 3 is a phenomenal story that actually has something to say, and it reminds us all that we always have a choice and we can always choose to do what's right.